Everyone, welcome back to Top Rope Nation. If you've never listened to the show, we usually put on a podcast every Wednesday or Thursday. It's a weekly show, but this is our first time doing a live webcast here on YouTube. So with that being said, I'm Ryan Drosty, editor-in-chief of TopRopePress.com, and I am joined here by our lead news writer, Mr. Kyle Ross, and it's us two that host the show weekly. We thought Survivor Series, a lot of fan interest. This would be a good time to try our hand here at a live webcast. So, Kyle, what'd you think of the show tonight? Just offhand, were you impressed? We got a lot to talk about. What are you thinking here?
I don't know what I'm thinking, actually. I'm still trying to process what I just saw in that main event. I texted you and I texted some other people who I knew were watching. It was either the best or worst finish in WWE pay-per-view history. Definitely nothing in between. And I can't figure out, though, if it was the best or worst yet. I suppose it all depends on where they go.
Yeah. Kyle and I were
From
texting
here
during the show, and that was quite the finish. We're, of course, talking about Goldberg and Lesnar. A lot to discuss there. I guess we might as well just start off with Goldberg and Lesnar.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to.
So you said it was either the best or the worst finish in pay-per-view history. I'm going to lean towards the worst. I thought personally it was a massively blown opportunity. If you look at it from the perspective of they've had Brock Lesnar now for several years back in the WWE, and he's basically destroyed everyone, right?
Yep.
So a win over Brock should mean something huge. So they bring back a guy who is nearly 50 years old, and he just utterly destroys him. Brock gets virtually no offense other than throwing him into the corner at the beginning. And a couple spears, jackhammer, we're finished.
Yeah.
What was your first
impression? I was going to say, sorry, I saw on Twitter that there was a Goldberg-Jerry Flynn match that lasted longer than that. What we saw tonight. So good old Jerry Flynn back on wrestling Twitter.
Not surprising.
20-year absence. Yeah.
That was it was brief, very brief. And you would have thought, I mean, this show went off the air, what, 30 minutes early?
That's okay though. Like nobody wanted this show to go 4 hours, I don't think.
Yeah, but you were expecting a longer match going in.
Yeah, well, all right. You outlined correctly the worst case scenario, and I would agree with that. Like if you were a glass is half empty person, you hit the nail on the head that you had Lesnar. Now he's been 4.5 years he's been back. It was 2012, right? He's crushed.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean he's crushed. So they kind of they didn't know what to do with them that first year. That first year almost was kind of like a waste, to be honest, which is a different problem. But since that time he'd beaten Punk, he'd snapped the streak, which is something I want to touch on. Squashed Cena, and then this year he squashed Ambrose, squashed Orton, all full-time guys. And then, to have another part-timer squash them, there's only two ways you can go with this now. Either they do a rematch, Goldberg and Lesnar, and I don't know how appealing that is after you have a babyface win in under 2 minutes. Like, that sort of violates, wrestling logic. Most... And that's not to say they won't do it. But, usually when a babyface wins a match in 90 seconds, that's kind of it. Like there's really not a desire by the public to see a rematch, I don't think. Or this is it for Brock Lesnar. Right? It's got to be one or the other. It's either that they do a rematch or it's over. And Brock Lesnar's, I don't know, just doesn't want to do this anymore. And they just decided, well, screw you, you're done. And this is how we're going to get rid of you.
So you got to wonder if this was, do you think Brock demanded he win in that fashion in order to do the match? Like complete dominant fashion? Do you think, Goldberg.
I was going to say, well,
yeah.
What a team player Brock would be then. Yeah. No, I don't think so. I mean, that'd be pretty ballsy. And they wouldn't have to agree to those terms by any means. I don't know. again, it's funny because I think the only real comparison you have to this is Lesnar beating Undertaker at Mania, which, if you go back and analyze that, I always thought they overcompensated for some poor storytelling when they had Lesnar win that match, because no one bought him having any chance of winning, kind of like Goldberg here. And the follow-up right after that was okay with Lesnar, but really, and we've talked about this on the show before, I don't know what Brock Lesnar means in 2016 WWE. Like, I don't think he's as great as some people make him out to be. If you look at the metrics, he's not a huge mover necessarily. I mean, this show sold out before they announced this match, I believe. So it's not like Goldberg and Lesnar drew the house. So I just think that, again, it's either going to be a rematch or Goldberg has supplanted Lesnar in the special attraction role.
Yeah, I think
that's it.
Yeah, I think Brock, he peaked 2-3 years ago, and he's steadily becoming, not as big of a deal as he had been. That's a fair statement.
And he's repetitive.
Yeah, his matches really are not that exciting like they were when he first came back. I mean, everyone was into the German suplexes over and over and over, and it was awesome at first. But when that's every match the guy's had for 3-4 years, it's I can't personally say I look forward to the Brock matches anymore, but I was looking forward to him strongly putting someone over, and I didn't expect it to be a nearly 50-year-old Bill Goldberg. That's for sure.
No, and you make a good point. I mean, we've talked about on this on the show before that, the golden goose that is the job that, that is beating Brock Lesnar, I should say, should have probably gone to a full-timer, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea behind Brock beating Taker and ending the streak is wrestling logic would dictate that then down the road, Brock puts someone over to give them the rub from him getting the rub from Taker.
Yeah. I mean, was it a mistake? I mean, certainly it looks like it now, in retrospect, to have Lesnar be the one who breaks the streak. Because you could make this same argument that we're making right now about Goldberg being the one to beat Lesnar. You could make that same exact argument way back when of having Lesnar be the guy to snap the WrestleMania streak. I think the argument applies in both situations. I really do. Because though Lesnar had not been booked to the best of his capabilities up till WrestleMania 30, he was an established guy. And he was a guy you could argue, he was probably the one guy in the roster. I know Vince did that thing with Austin where it was like, oh, well, I can't think of anyone better than Brock Lesnar to get that win. And I kind of was like, I don't know if I could think of anyone who needed it less, to be quite blunt. Right? I mean,
yeah, he didn't need it.
I don't know. I kind of view that as a mistake in retrospect right now. And I don't know. I just don't know if Brock Lesnar, him beating, I don't know if the bump he supposedly got from beating The Undertaker is what people make it out to be. I think it may just be it was a bad decision in retrospect.
Yeah, at the time, I didn't mind it because if you're thinking in realistic terms, who's the guy that could beat the Undertaker? It'd be Brock Lesnar. But looking back now, they haven't really followed through on it in a way that I thought they would. So yeah, you can make the argument it was a mistake. I don't think it's a good correlation though, because when Lesnar beat Taker, you knew Lesnar was around. I mean, he wasn't working every week or anything, but he had a certain amount of matches every year. And Goldberg, for all we know, he's done. Now, I think he's probably wrestling.
I don't think so. No, there's no way. Goldberg is not done.
Yeah, he's for sure wrestling at WrestleMania. Yeah. I would be shocked if he didn't.
Yeah, there's no. Yeah, I mean that if there is one thing I absolutely know right now after that match, and there's not a lot I do know, but one thing I can tell you is, there's zero chance that Bill Goldberg's not wrestling again. Zero. Yeah. I mean, if they're keeping Lesnar around and that's it for Goldberg, that would be the worst. That is the worst decision I've ever seen in pay-per-view history. But there's just no way that's the case. No.
There's no way that he's winning the match if he's not sticking around for another match. Like you said, zero chance.
When he hit the jackhammer and you're watching that live, were you like, oh my God, I think this is it?
That's a good question. I thought at the time, I did think Brock would kick out.
Okay, because I was like, holy shit, I'm like, he just hit it. I'm like, this is over. I'm like, they're not going to kill his finisher like 90 seconds into this match, are they? And I was like, I'm like, oh my God, this thing's over.
Yeah,
And
I thought it was going to keep going. I didn't think it was over, but I was shocked. I probably looked like that kid at WrestleMania 30 when the streak was ended. I was picking my jaw up off the floor.
I don't have a problem with them doing something unique. As a matter of fact, I kind of like it. Like if you just kind of look at it at a macro level, the idea of, some people are like, oh, WWE main events, they have to be 20 minutes. I don't like that rule. I don't subscribe to that line of thinking at all. Quite frankly, I just don't. Like, I actually think, if I can be like an old school, it's still real to me, damn it, guy. I kind of actually hate, how every WWE main event has to kind of follow a familiar pattern. And following a match that, by the way, went 52 minutes, you didn't want them out there that long, I don't think.
No, but maybe longer. Well, how long was that match? 2 minutes?
90. It was 86 seconds, I believe. 126 is your official time.
Wow, you would think at least 5 to 10 minutes, but my God, as much as they hyped this match for weeks and weeks and weeks.
I would be interested in hearing from people who specifically ordered this show for that match, what their thoughts are. Because if those people are happy with it, then whatever. People there are, quite frankly, that ordered this show specifically for this match. And we've talked about it before. The number of casual viewers WWE has is at its all-time low. Yeah. So I don't think there's a ton of people. Yeah, but there probably are some people out there. And if this was your main point of interest in a show, I would love to hear from people how, their overall level of satisfaction for Survivor Series, that, the match they were looking most forward to lasted 86 seconds.
Well, I do have to come clean on something. So we've been talking about this match for weeks on the Top Rope Nation podcast, and I was pretty vocal that I thought Goldberg would get booed by the Toronto crowd.
Oh,
I'll admit that did not seem to happen, so I'll admit I was wrong. Although I do have to say, Kyle, when I was watching his entrance, I was wondering if some of those chants were piped in. Because every time they showed the crowd, I didn't see anyone chanting Goldberg.
Oh, here we go.
But it was loud. No doubt he was getting cheered. He was.
Yeah. It was a unique crowd all night. Like, I think a lot of people, at least maybe not a lot of people, but I know I was thinking, oh, okay, this Toronto crowd, it's going to be, kind of one of the big storylines of the show. Are they going to go into business for themselves? And that can be annoying sometimes. But they really didn't. I thought it was kind of a docile crowd all night. I was almost disappointed in them. Like, I hate sometimes when they start, like, there's nothing worse than when people chant Randy Savage in a cruiserweight match. Like, that's just the worst. Or CM Punk in a cruiserweight match. Like, that's just, just a look at me kind of thing from the crowd. But, this crowd, I was kind of shocked by just how docile they were the whole time.
Yeah, compared with the NXT event last night, they were more reserved, and you think it'd be about the same people for sure at each show. But I don't know, the NXT show, you haven't seen it yet, I don't think, Kyle.
No, I haven't. Unfortunately, I was traveling and I missed it. I know what happened.
It was unbelievable show, top to bottom. I think you could make the argument that was possibly the best takeover event they've ever had.
Wow.
Yeah, top to bottom, it was unbelievable.
Okay.
I grading the show, I tweeted out my match ratings on our Twitter account afterwards. That was I didn't have anything under 3 stars. Best match, by the way, we've also been talking about on our podcast lately, we've been talking what's going to be the match of the weekend, right? And what did we both agree on that would be the match of the weekend? We said the tag title match at NXT. Yeah. And it was, that was the match of the weekend, no doubt about it. I was like 4.25, 4.5 stars on that match. I was into it top to bottom, the whole NXT show.
Yeah, I'd heard it was great. And I can't wait to watch that. Quite frankly, I'm going to hopefully blow through that tomorrow afternoon. But this was just, I don't know. I don't know what it says that the crowd just kind of seemed fairly lethargic. I don't know if that's an indictment of the creative building up to the show, or if it's just kind of like the nature of the show itself. You know, we touched on this when we talked about Survivor Series history. These elimination matches sometimes, as a gimmick, there's a reason Survivor Series has always been relegated to the fourth of the big four.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you can tell good stories in these elimination matches, but more often than not, WWE doesn't. And I thought the first two, I shouldn't say the tag match, I'm not as high on it as some were. I thought when it got down to Cesaro and Sheamus versus the Usos, it was good. I thought the women's match was absolutely atrocious. Like one of the worst elimination matches I've seen in 30-year history of Survivor Series. I'm not even trying to be prone to hyperbole here. I thought it was one of the worst pieces of crap elimination matches I've ever seen. It was just it was every bad crutch that the creative falls on, leans on with these elimination matches through history. Mm-hmm. They used in like 20 awful minutes in that. And we can touch on that later, but yeah, I don't know. The crowd wasn't really that into it, but they were into the main event, I thought, for sure. And it's all about where they go from there. I mean, if they have something cool with Goldberg, then more power to them. Maybe it works. I mean, do you want to see a rematch?
Personally, no.
Okay.
No.
I mean, yeah. I mean, usually, like I said, just taking the names out of the equation, if a babyface wins in that manner, usually you don't do a rematch.
Right.
Because the crowd's like, why do I want to see that? I don't know. Unless if they do like, do you think they do something like awful, like Lesnar, like F5's Goldberg shirtless son or something like that?
I was wondering why his son got in the ring without a shirt on. That was kind of awkward.
Yeah, I know. Is that allowed? I mean, I don't know. I guess you're allowed to take your shirts off at WWE shows, right?
I'm pretty sure I've seen it at a show or two.
Okay, yeah. Do you think they go that route, like some like cheap heat route for a rematch? Because that's the only thing they can do, right?
Yeah, I don't know how you draw the fans in. Yeah,
because why would Goldberg? I mean, the whole thing was, Goldberg, beat Lesnar before, so, and it was kind of actually, to be honest with you, the premise of this match was kind of silly.
Yeah,
like why would Goldberg come back for one more match against the guy he beat?
Yeah.
Like it should have been like Lesnar goading him back in, and that really wasn't it. Like they had Heyman do that interview where he challenged him, and like Goldberg's like, okay, I kind of want to wrestle in front of my son, but it wasn't the most perfect story told by any means. So, and the idea that Goldberg just sort of replaces Lesnar as the guy who does the big job to a guy on the full-time roster, that seems odd. Unless if Brock Lesnar just doesn't want to be in WWE anymore. That's the only thing I can think of. Like, the finish is absolutely justifiable if Brock Lesnar's leaving and doesn't want to be in WWE anymore. That's the one way you absolutely justify what we saw tonight.
Yeah.
Without hesitation.
So, booking-wise, if we want to drop some bombs on here, you guys, from what we've heard, this finish was totally a Vince call to have Goldberg go over in this fashion. So take that as you see fit. But yeah, that's the word on the street. That's what we heard right before going on the air.
Yeah.
And
that shouldn't be a surprise. It's not like any writer's going to pitch that. I mean, I think anyone can deduce that. No one's going to walk into that room and tell Vince, what we should do main event tonight? Lesnar jobs 86 seconds. I mean, that's a guy with a lot of job security if he recommends that. Yeah. If he walks and says that. I mean, and when you talk about Vince signs off on everything. It's kind of funny that people have this notion now that, Vince is just like not like he doesn't have anything to do with the SmackDown because it's better. That's not true. I don't know if he, just gives that creative team more leeway, if he just likes them more or what, or just more comfortable in what they do on a weekly basis. But I mean, he ultimately signs off on everything. I mean, there's nothing that you saw tonight or you'll see tomorrow or Tuesday that Vince McMahon doesn't sign off on.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Vince, one of the things that ran through my mind, so in the brand split in the past, what we saw was that we typically always got Raw with the upper hand, right? Raw was always the number one show, SmackDown the number two show. And that's one of the reasons why the brand split didn't really work in the past. And as we got towards that singles Survivor Series main event match right before Goldberg and Brock, Raw basically got the upper hand in nearly every match other than what, the Miz match.
Yeah. And I was surprised by how many people didn't think it was obvious SmackDown was going to win that match, the singles match, the big elimination match.
And by that time, God, you would have thought they had to, because they lost pretty much everything else.
Yeah, I mean, whether you thought it was a good idea or not, it was basically a position where they had to. But I was pretty confident they were going to, like, to your point, Raw has always been Vince's baby. There's no way you're going to have one brand sweep every elimination match. I mean, that's ridiculous. Yeah. And even, even if Vince hated SmackDown, he's not going to do that. I mean, what's the point of even having a brand extension then?
Mm-hmm. So, well, that's why I was kind of surprised that the first two elimination matches you had Raw win both of them, because it kind of took away all the drama, I thought. Because like you said, it was obvious there's no way Raw was going to win every single one. And since they had won the first two, there wasn't, to me, watching it, at least logically, there wasn't much drama. You knew that SmackDown was winning that match.
Yeah, so you could say the same about the Cruiserweight match too, by the way.
Yeah.
After the Intercontinental result was in. Yeah, it was funny. I actually predicted if I remember from our prediction show on Wednesday, I think I went 3 for 3 on which brand would win the elimination match. I didn't make any of the right picks who would win. But I think I called the brands. I was, a lot of people, when Raw won the women's, everyone's, oh, well, SmackDown will win the tag team now. And I think I told you on Wednesday, I'm like, I don't see any of the SmackDown teams really being viable enough to win that in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, you called that. Yeah. But at the same time, who would have thought that American Alpha would come out with so little heat? Let's talk about that match. Let's talk about the tag team match. So
we're jumping around. Are you concerned officially about them? Because you know what? It's not on WWE with American Alpha. The crowd is just not into them.
Yeah.
Like they had them come out last. They had the announcers constantly plug, oh, this American, they had the Raw announcers. I even have it. I took lots of notes here, by the way. And I had it in here. I think it was Corey Graves, as I dropped said notes. But Corey Graves was like really putting over American Alpha. He's like, oh, as a Raw guy, I'm really scared of what this American Alpha can do to our side. So, like, they're actually trying to get American Alpha over, and it's not working.
Yeah.
Are you concerned about that?
I just personally, yeah, I would be concerned. I think it has to do with the fact that they've waited too long with them. I think the whole thing they've done with Rhino and Heath Slater has gone way, way, way too long.
I agree with that. You and I remember when they done the tag tournament. If anyone's listening to us for the first time, we were big on, they're kind of jamming two storylines into this one situation, the tag tournament, where, the tag title division should have been all about, I think we agreed, Usos winning, American Alpha chasing. And then Heath Slater, which was a good storyline, he could have been on his own. Like, as much as the Slater and Rhino act is over, they really haven't done anything since winning the titles.
Yeah, I honestly thought when it happened, this was going to be like a couple week title reign.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather see, to be honest with you, I would have rather seen Slater as a single in the Ziggler role feuding with Miz.
Yeah.
I think I've said that before, but yeah, it's funny that I talk about that. Alpha's not kind of over, but they were kind of getting over in the match. But then they got eliminated right after that. I mean, let's go through that. Want to start? I mean, I guess it's kind of it was a middle of the show match, but let's just go through that. I mean,
the tag match, yeah. New Day going out right towards the beginning, right?
Yeah.
How shocked were you about that one?
It's something you can do because, they don't lose anything by it at all. I mean, you can just rehab them real quick, and it just isn't a big deal. I mean, they try to make it into a big deal. And it was surprising, but I think a couple weeks from now, no one remembers it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all know what the deal was with New Day. They're breaking Demolition's record. So I think this was just kind of an opportunity to do shock booking. And really, this whole show was kind of all about just catching people off guard instead of telling coherent stories that fit into a larger framework, I think.
Yeah.
Which is where I had a problem with the show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of the old crutches, like I said in the other match, they relied on here. So in this tag team match, this was amazing. If you got the elimination in the tag team match, you were the next team out almost every time. I've got the order of elimination here. First of all, I'm going to say something that may be unpopular.
Go ahead.
But damn it, I believe it. I think Breezango is absolutely tremendous in this new gimmick with these issuing tickets for these fashion violations. When Fandango came out and started throwing those tickets, I thought that was great. But they got eliminated like in the first minute. And then, as you mentioned, it was the Usos who pinned the New Day and the Shocker. And then Anderson and Gallows pinned the Hype Bros. Alpha pinned the Shining Stars. And then this is where, watch this pattern. Anderson and Gallows pinned Alpha, which was odd, I thought, because Alpha was starting to get over at that point.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go to. Why on earth were they the ones to pin Alpha? That shocked me.
Well, it's so odd what they're doing with Anderson and Gallows, and we've mentioned this, that they lost the tag title program, which, you know, not to sound like I'm 80 years old, but like in the old days, once you lost like a tag title program, you were pretty much done. Like you were just going to do your jobs, lose to everybody, and leave the promotion. Well, like it seems like after they've lost the tag title program to New Day, they're like rehabbing Anderson and Gallows. Which
That's
is so
the exact
odd.
term I would use, rehab, for sure.
And but just as we say that, Gallows got pinned by Rhino clean right after that. Then Enzo pinned Rhino. Then Jey Uso pinned Enzo. Do you sensing the pattern here?
Yep.
And then we did get what I thought was a really good segment between Cesaro and Sheamus and the Usos. You know, kind of a pairing that we hadn't seen because the brand split. We probably won't see again. It was very random, but it was very good.
Yeah, when it was down to those two,
I thought.
Were you thinking the Usos were going to win? Because I was.
I could see it going either way. So the story that so obviously Cesaro and Sheamus, they go over. I mean, assuming you've watched Survivor Series, but we should let people know. So Cesaro and Sheamus go over, and it was to set up a tag title match. Now they're getting with New Day, and I think it's on Raw tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And again, here's my point to the New Day elimination: why it's so pointless early match. New Day's going to win tomorrow, or they're not losing the titles, I should say.
Yeah, they're closing
because they're breaking Demolition's record.
Yeah,
yeah. So there was actually something interesting. Somebody pointed out on Twitter when I was watching the match that the Usos kind of disappeared from the match. Did you notice that?
Yeah,
for like
a little
5
bit.
minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if they were just laying outside, and I thought they were pulling the old Jimmy Hart gimmick, where they were just like under the ring and they were going to steal the match at the end. But then they just sort of showed up.
Yeah,
which was weird.
I guess I looked at it when it got down to those two teams as I'm thinking someone's got to win that's going to be together long term, and everyone knows this Cesaro Sheamus thing's not going to last. So I was shocked that out of all 10 of those teams, they were the sole surviving team.
Yeah, I picked I think New Day and Enzo and Cass to be the survivors, just as a thing to send the crowd, you know, make the crowd happy.
Yeah, I had Alpha, so I was way off.
Well, you know, for a while, I thought, well, for about halfway through the match, when the announcers were putting them over and they kind of started getting over when they got their one elimination, I was like, okay, Ryan might be right here. Maybe they are going to push Alpha, especially when New Day was out of the picture early. But yeah, it was kind of odd. But we talked about this when we previewed the show. It really just didn't matter who wins this match. Unless if I guess they really are going the distance with Sheamus and Cesaro.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they do have them snap the streak. Is Roadblock before or after the Demolition record? Did we figure this out yet?
I thought we mentioned it on the show a couple weeks ago, like when exactly they would pass the record. I thought, I was thinking it was a television show where they would pass them, like it was a week show, almost landed right on the day. And
okay.
I think I think Roadblock might be after, but I'm not positive.
Okay. Well, and again, wouldn't it be so bad if like they beat the streak and then they lose it right after? What a pointless thing that would be. But
Yeah.
we'll see. But this whole match was to set up. I mean, I guess there was a point to it after all, and it was to reestablish Cesaro and Sheamus as the number one contenders on the Raw brand for the tag titles. I don't know what you're doing right now with the SmackDown tag title picture at all. Because Slater and Rhino just kind of got pinned in the middle of the match. Usos kind of look strong in this, but not really. Yeah. Alpha, I don't know how much they got out of this. And then, the rest of the division is kind of, opening match fodder. So I don't know what you're doing on that brand.
Well, if you look at the NXT show, you could think that Revival could be coming up. Possibly they send them to SmackDown.
Yeah, that is true. And I would like that.
Yeah, fresh.
The Revival is better than any tag team on SmackDown right now, including American Alpha. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure. So
the Revival may be the best tag team in the world right now. Is that fair? Mike, is that a hot take?
It's a hot take.
Bit of a hot take.
I would agree with that. The Young Bucks would probably have something to say about it. Okay. I like the Young Bucks too, but Revival to me has been the tag team of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. We were talking about American Alpha. Are you concerned about how not over they are? It makes you wonder how much of them being over was working with Revival.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Gargano and Ciampa, by the way, deserve some discussion.
Oh, they're great. Yeah, they're great. I don't put them quite on that level though, as like the Bucks and Revival. But yeah, they're on their way. I think I see them though splitting up before they really hit their stride.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's still a story to be told down there in NXT. But what did you think overall of the tag match? I thought it was good. Some people were really praising it. I think Meltzer used the term super to describe the match. I thought that was a little strong. I thought because of the closing sequence, it was good. But I just think it was up until it just came down to Usos and Cesaro and Sheamus. I didn't care at all what I was watching. It was just trading eliminations. Like one team would get a win and then they'd lose. It was just totally pointless.
I felt like it was decent. If I was giving it a rating, the old star ratings, I'd probably say like 3.25, 3.5. It was a solid match, but it wasn't anything that I was super excited about watching.
3.5 just seems like I saw a lot about that, and that seems just a little high. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a solidly worked match. It just didn't have much excitement. How long did that
match go? I should look that up.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But like, I mean, I just think that 2/3 of it just didn't hold my interest.
I will say, like with the finish, I was shocked at who won, and I thought a lot, like we've been saying, I thought a lot of eliminations were questionable. But I felt a little bit better about it when they announced that they'd get the tag team title match on Raw. Yeah, and Cesaro and Sheamus. With them, like, well, at least there's some direction out of this. And similarly, let's just talk about the women's match, which opened the show. I would have had the tag teams open the show, by the way, not the women. That's just me. Yeah, I don't know if that makes this show significantly better or not, but if I was laying out the show, that's the way I would have done it. The story with the women's match wound up being setting up a future title program on the Raw brand as well with Bayley and Charlotte that we all knew was coming, and this just sort of reinforced it. Yeah. I mentioned it earlier. I was pretty critical of this match. I thought it absolutely sucked. Maybe one of the worst women's matches since the quote unquote women's revolution began. Yeah, it was last year. I thought it was just a hot mess, man. There was no stories being told. All of them were off. There were a couple blown spots, scratching booking decisions in this thing. I mean, do we need to go through the hit list? Might as well. Yeah. The Nikki injury angle just came across so phony. I thought. I'm guessing that it's going to be Natty that did it. Your thoughts? Although, like, the way Carmella was acting, she was kind of like, oh, gee, I wonder who did this. And she was kind of trying to make you seem like it was her. Mm-hmm. And so if it's not, the way she was reacting was kind of weird. And it looked like Alexa Bliss was kind of like being facetious about it too. Yeah. So, I mean, some people are like, oh, it's kind of good. You don't know who did it. But, to play bad cop, I'm like, I don't know if I really care. I texted you right when it happened. I was like, was that even Nikki there? Like it didn't look
Oh,
like her. It didn't look like her hair. You never really saw her face. I'm not sure that was even her, so she might have just had the weekend off, but it made sense because of
I
course
think it was her.
you would want Natalia in the match. It's in Canada. But yeah, they're clearly going somewhere with I think Natalia being involved.
Yeah, because she was like, I hate this because from her, she's like, oh, I know I'm supposed to be the coach, but I'm here, and you guys need somebody. So,
Yeah.
it's an angle that I don't think really. Okay, maybe you get a little mileage out of it on TV because you got a 2-hour program every week in a division of 6 or 7 women. But, a few months from now, no one's going to remember this. So they had Nikki out of the match and Natalia replaced her. Carmella is not the finest worker of all time, but I was stunned she was out first in this thing. Pinned by Alicia Fox.
Yeah, that tells you where she is on the totem pole in the women's division.
I mean, come on. Carmella deserved better than this. Didn't she? I mean, she's been involved in a legitimate program that hasn't really been blown off on TV. I was just shocked by that.
Yeah.
It made no sense.
By the way, that elimination came 6 minutes into the match, or roughly 4 times as long as the Goldberg Lesnar match.
Yes. Well, there we go. Yeah. And then especially what made it look even weirder is Alicia Fox was pinned right after by Alexa Bliss. They did this in the tag team match too, which I hate when they do that, when like they go a long time between eliminations and then they go 2 in a row, bang, bang.
Mm-hmm.
That's just poor pacing, in my opinion. When we get to the men's match, they did a much better job of the pacing. Of course, they gave them all the time in the world, but whatever. They only gave the girls or the women short, a little bit longer than 20 minutes. That's just too short to do an elimination match. I'm sorry. When you're doing 8 eliminations in 20 minutes, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another one that just absolutely left my jaw on the floor. You talk about questionable booking decisions. We're protecting Naomi. You got counted out. She didn't get, and especially given what they did with Nia Jax later. What? They didn't have Nia Jax just squash her. Naomi? What are we saving her for? Naomi?
This is kind of unrelated note, but I might forget about this if I don't throw it out here right now. So last night I was live tweeting the NXT show, and I said Nakamura has by far the best entrance in pro wrestling right now in WWE. And I instantly got replies that said, no way, Balor and Naomi. And I was like, one of these is not like the other. It's like, I'll give you Balor, but Naomi's what?
I'm not saying that Naomi's entrance is bad. It's probably the best thing about her act. I mean, the act certainly cools off when the entrance is over. But I think to have a good entrance, you have to be at a certain level of star.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is what makes a great entrance. It's the entrance and the crowd reaction. And that's what I responded back to the person. I was like, well, the crowd reaction part's probably not quite at the level of a Nakamura or a Finn Balor entrance. So yeah, she was protected. That was I
was just shocking. Like, what? Naomi? Because we discussed this a little bit when we talked about the early Survivor Series. They started going to count out finishes just to protect people way too much. And it was people who didn't really need to be protected at the time. I just cannot think of anyone on this roster who needs to be protected any less than Naomi. Except maybe Natty. Here's another of our favorite Survivor Series finishes: a roll up. Natty rolling up Sasha just mid match. Sasha, who did she piss off this week?
That was kind of the start of all the questionable decisions tonight. That was one of the first ones that made me kind of roll my eyes. Like, what's going on here?
Well, I know why they did it, but I don't agree with it. They did it because they're trying to clear the deck, I think, for Bayley to be the number one babyface on the brand.
Yeah.
And so I guess they just wanted to forget about her competition and have her out early.
Yeah, I see that.
But yeah, we've talked about this before. It's a crowded place on top in the Raw Women's division as long as you have both Bayley and Sasha on the babyface side, and they don't really know which one to go with right now. Before it seemed like they were going with Sasha. Now it seems like they're going with Bayley. If you keep, I just don't know what you do with the one who's not in the title program because, I guess just, have them just kind of be whatever and over at their, at a certain level and they trade wins with the rest of the division. So I guess that's where Sasha's at. It's probably too bad.
Well,
Natty was out next.
I think they better go full steam ahead with Bailey, or what you're going to have is the same kind of thing as what's happened to Alpha in the tag division on SmackDown. They've waited way too long with Bailey. And Sasha, we've talked about on the show, she needs to be a heel anyways. So yes. Hopefully they go full steam ahead.
We should point this out. They were going back to Dana Brooke with Charlotte now, after a couple weeks where they just sort of seemingly dropped that.
Yeah.
I am still, for a while I thought we were over this, but I'm scared again that they're going with Charlotte and Dana as the big WrestleMania program in the Raw Women's division. I'm still scared about that.
For those of you that don't listen to our podcast weekly, Kyle has been predicting this for weeks, if not months, that they still think Dana's going to be the top face of that women's division, and her and Charlotte, they think that's the money match. So we'll see.
Because you can't stretch Charlotte Bailey out to WrestleMania, can you?
No, it could be a big Rumble match. You could do some kind of tag match at the December show.
Well, I don't even know if you can do that. I
think you can stretch it out. Certainly not WrestleMania.
You have to, because I think if we learned one thing tonight, it's that if the women's division and the tag team division weren't split up onto brands, they'd actually be pretty strong.
Oh yeah, especially tag division, big time.
But when you split them up, they're kind of like, they're okay. But yeah, they'd both be really strong if you just had one of them. But the way it is it's just, I don't know, I guess. But then who knows? Maybe not as many of them would be over if you didn't have a brand split. But Charlotte beat Natty next. So right after Natty started getting over, they eliminated her. Then this one shocked me. They had Nia Jax, who had been building up as this unstoppable monster, just tap to Becky Lynch. Yeah. Say what you will about Nia Jax. I'm not saying,
this is where the count out should have happened.
Yes, they totally screwed up the booking with her and Naomi.
Yeah,
Naomi's someone who they protected, and they don't protect Nia Jax. And the real funny thing is, it's not like they were oblivious to this because they had Nia Jax get her heat back right after by attacking Becky, right after, which was so odd. It's like, well, if you need to keep her over, why do you have her tap? She's still getting her feet wet in this thing. She's still a new character, and you're having her tap. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah.
And then Charlotte sort of pinned Alexa out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. You should give her she gave her a boot, right?
Yeah. It just kind of came out of nowhere. It was when Nia was getting her heat back at the expense of Becky. And so it came down to Charlotte and Bailey against Becky. I think I talked about this on our preview show. I'm like, those, I would like to see Sasha still in there at that point. And then maybe Becky pin somebody and then succumb to the odds. In this instance, though, she just lost to the two of them. Becky got the pin, and then Charlotte attacked Becky after the match, or pardon me, Bailey after the match, which clearly signaled that's the direction on the Raw brand.
Yeah. So it was not the ideal match to open the show with. I
thought this match was really bad. I hope I made that clear. I just thought it was really there was no stories really told until it was basically like, okay, all right, well, we need to hype Charlotte versus Bailey. And they just didn't even try to do anything else. I think there was some tease tension between Becky and Alexa Bliss, which is still the title program on SmackDown. At least unlike the tag team that SmackDown, the Raw women's, or the SmackDown women's title has a bit of a direction. But there just wasn't much going on. There wasn't a ton of heat when the champions squared off, when Charlotte and Becky were in there. Even Bailey versus Becky didn't draw a lot of heat. It just, if you go star ratings, this was clearly under 2 for me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's tough to even open when you only have, when you only have 3 Survivor Series matches. I think it's tough to open with that style of a match because the audience today is not conditioned to watch a long match in the first place. And then when you put the women's match out there, which had hardly any heat to begin with, I thought when this match started the show, I turned to the people I was watching with, and we talked about how questionable, Very questionable match to go on first.
I think if you would have done some interesting, and maybe, who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the crowd just wasn't going to buy this match at all or buy it as the opener, but there's some stuff you could have done to get the crowd into it. I just thought it fell apart very early and they never recovered. There was, I think Bayley missed a breakup of a pin at one point. I think it was towards the end when it was down to just the three of them, when it was down to her and Charlotte against Becky. And then there was something, it was right before Nia Jax tapped, they blew a spot too. I can't remember. It was like a double DDT spear thing. It was botched too. So this was just an ugly match. Nobody was crisp and hitting their stuff well, I thought, in this.
Yeah. And then we went into the IC title match. And I think when we previewed the show last week on the podcast, we talked about how this one had potential to be the match of the night and the weekend. Although we were pretty certain it was going to be the NXT tag title match. And I thought this one was well below expectations. I don't know what you thought of it, but the finish was pretty lame.
Yeah.
With the roll up. I was looking for a lot more because we've been, unlike a lot of fans out there and writers, we've been pretty high on everything the Miz has done this year. And I'm thinking he's going in there with Sami Zayn, a lot of potential here, and it just didn't really click tonight.
It definitely was not as good as the Miz Ziggler matches. It was okay, it was good, but it wasn't great. And a lot of it, they were building to something, but the finish really, I thought, took a lot out of what they had done the previous 5-10 minutes, down a notch.
Yeah.
And if you missed it, they had Zayn had Miz in the figure 4. And was getting good heat. The crowd was into it. And then the bell rang. Zayn thought he won, but it was actually Maurice that rang the bell. Of course, they had to do something with ring the bell because they're in Canada.
Of course.
Sure, Vince was just dancing in the back, thinking it was so funny. Well, everyone else was like, "Really, this shit?"
Wait
again?
till next year,
and
20-year anniversary. Something's happening.
And then, right after, Miz just rolls them up for the pin. I thought it was a weak finishing. I had talked about too on the previous show. I thought that they were going to switch the brand, both titles. They did not. Obviously, neither switched. They both stayed. This is going to be unpopular with a lot of people, me saying this, but I'll stand by this. I don't like the way it went down, but I'm totally cool with Miz still being the IC champion and not Zayn. I know people love Sammy and are really disappointed that he never gets the big win, even though he beat Owens at Battleground, and ironically that did nothing for him. But they've kind of forgotten about him ever since. But I don't know. I made the case that Miz actually didn't need the Intercontinental title. Zayn needed it more. But maybe I should have seen this coming because I was thinking mid-match, I'm like, kind of sucks. They just put the belt back on Miz and now he's going to lose it. That kind of sucks. But, I should have seen this coming that, why would they just put the belt back on him just to lose like that? To me, it's just like, if they wanted the belt to change brands, why wouldn't you just beat Ziggler in that spot then?
Yeah. I think I might have even said that on our podcast last Wednesday that why put it on him if he's going to lose it Sunday? But I think that's just kind of the whole theme with this pay-per-view is just that not a lot of consequence even happened. Neither of the titles switched that could have switched.
No, yeah, I don't think, the main event certainly will get people talking. I don't know how much it'll matter in the grand scheme of things, but I don't think this was a terrible show. I just think it was a show that, it was just kind of pointless.
Yeah.
Because Zayn getting his heat back at Miz's expense. I mean, how do they tell that story?
Yeah. I was waiting for that match to get restarted. I thought something might happen to get it restarted. I was hoping. Maybe that was the hopeful side.
It should be pointed. They were starting to really hit their stride before the bad finish, I thought. Yeah. They were getting there to where like the Miz Ziggler matches had been, and that just killed it dead. Should be pointed out, by the way, Miz, not saying he's better than Ric Flair by any means. Would never say that.
Oh God, here we go.
when he does the figure 4, unlike Rick, he puts it on the straight leg. Rick never did that right when he did the figure 4.
Yeah.
Whenever he did it, he would work the knee, but then he wouldn't, put the pressure on the knee had been working the whole time. Just a minor nitpick there. Miz did it. It's supposed to be the straight leg. You're supposed to work on the knee, and then the straight leg is the one that you're working on. The figure 4 works on. Miz knows that. Real
That's
ring
true.
tactician.
Yeah. Ring general, The Miz. Yes.
Yeah. I thought this was like a 3.5 star affair.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, it was it could have been good. And that finish just, yeah, it was completely out of nowhere. And I was just I was stunned, just like in the main event. I'm waiting, like, is this going to be restarted? What's going on here? Nothing.
Yeah. Something that we need to talk about is the announcing tonight. The announcing, they went with the 4-man revolving announce booth.
What a mess.
With no rhyme or reason to who was doing it. So the opener, you had JBL, Morrow, Corey Graves, and Byron Saxton. For the IC title, you had JB, Cole, David Otunga, and Byron Saxton. Michael Cole clearly was something improved. He had a lot of stats tonight. Did you notice that? I don't know if he was trying to seem like he was smarter than Morrow or not, but he was busting on a lot of Survivor Series history.
He had his index cards. He was ready to go.
Yeah, he was like, did you know the Ultimate Warrior was 3-0 in elimination matches? He had a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. I did notice at the time, but looking back, yeah, I can see that.
I have something to ask you. I don't know if you've noticed this ever, but Meltzer and Alvarez have this real hard-on for Miz ripping off the Daniel Bryan spots.
Yeah.
This is something that you're even aware of. Like, they constantly bitch about him. They're like, he does those kicks so bad. And I think they aren't missing the irony. I think they're missing the irony of the spot that that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
He's not supposed to be he's just mocking Daniel Bryan. He's not trying to be that's the whole point of the Miz.
They did do that kind of storyline on the after show for a while.
The whole thing, the point is that he's not as good a wrestler as Daniel Bryan was, but he's just mocking his spots.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised. Alvarez, I'm not really surprised that he's missing the point, but Dave, I'm a little disappointed. Because he keeps writing, he's like, well, his kicks, his Daniel Bryan impression was a little better, but the kicks aren't still as good as Bryan was. It's like, Dave,
that's the point.
You're trying to draw heat by mocking the man's moves. He's not trying to pay tribute to the man.
Yeah.
Dave.
You think of all people.
Yeah, I don't know what is he. I think because they were kind of the last people on board with the Miz bandwagon, and I mean, not everyone's on board yet, but we're not the only two on it by any means.
No,
because they've always been the most critical of him. I think they're trying to cling to anything they can.
Well, Alvarez has used the term geek and Miz simultaneously for many years. Not a fan.
Yeah. But and then the tag team match, which we already talked about, the announcers were Morrow, Corey Graves, Otunga, and Byron Saxton. So again, it was a different lineup every time. Yeah. And do you know what it shows to me, Ryan?
What?
How pointless every individual announcer is.
They're all interchangeable. They're all
and WWE's basically it doesn't care. We're just going to put we've got these guys. We've got 6 announcers on our 2 shows. We're going to put any combination of the 4 on there. Who cares which combination of the 4 it is?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it kind of speaks to just kind of how it was definitely noticeable when Corey Graves was on it. He's the only one worth a damn anymore of the 6. No offense to Morrow. I know a lot of people love Morrow. And certainly if you love him, he'll retweet you. I know that. But he's regressed badly.
Oh man. Morrow has been neutered. He has been neutered.
Yeah, he's been neutered, but it was funny, even when he kicked off the show, it seemed like he'd taken a soma or something like that. He wasn't even excited. I was like, Jesus, Morrow, did Vince just berate you over the headset when this started? I mean, it was he hasn't been good recently. And I don't know if it's his fault or whoever's producing him's fault, but yeah, he's not what we were hoping for.
I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I would think it's a production issue or something he's been encouraged to. Some things he's been encouraged not to do in WWE land.
Well, he still gets all those New Japan references in.
Yeah, that's true. They haven't stopped him from doing that.
Yeah, he loves his references and his jokes. Oh, do you know what? Here's what I don't know. Maybe I just have a weird sense of humor. People were there were 3 people on the Twitter feed who was like, oh man, I just love that. It's whatever that thing he says about uppercuts, an uppercut party don't stop or whatever that line is. You know what I'm saying? Like he's like,
Yeah.
oh, an uppercut. It's an uppercut. I could look it up or whatever. People know the reference.
Yeah.
He says it all the time. Like 3 people tweeted him during the show. It's like, I just love when Mauro Ranallo says that. Like, what?
Just gets me going.
Yeah, like what? It's like not funny at all, really. It's like kind of horrible.
Yeah.
Like you talk about like how desperate are you for a retweet, that you would do that.
Oh man. Well, I'm sure there'll be hundreds of them before midnight tonight.
I mean, I'm not claiming to be any Twitter expert or that I get over, but I mean, it's like, Jesus. It's like, I mean, if I'm saying that's funny, I mean,
yeah.
kill me now.
So the next match was the tag team elimination match. We already talked about that. All right. Then we had the cruiserweight title match, Kendrick and Kalisto. Wow, how the cruiserweight division has fallen. I'm going to admit at this point, I started flipping back and forth between Survivor Series and a college basketball game.
I saw the Panthers lost tonight, by the way. I checked.
They did. I was watching the Northern Iowa Xavier game, but they have a rematch in 6 days.
Oh, I was
they already scheduled a home and home series this year and next. And so the fact that they were playing each other in this tournament tonight was pretty crazy because they're each other's. This was the one in Orlando at the ESPN Disney World thing. But hey, Northern Iowa, they beat Arizona State, absolutely destroyed them, and then beat Oklahoma, another big win. It would have been nice to get Xavier because I think if we could have beat them, we'd be knocking on the top 25. But maybe we can get them later this week. So
I was right by Xavier University at the start of today, believe it or not.
Well, you need to drive down there for the game this weekend. Watch your UNI Panthers in person.
Wow. Yeah, I was right. Xavier was real stone's throw. We were about 2 exits away from the campus.
Nice.
This morning. Yeah.
They're a good squad. So yeah, that was a close game though. Like when I was flipping back and forth with that and the cruiserweight match, it was within a few points. And the cruiserweight match, I mean, it was okay. It wasn't bad. There's some pretty cool spots in it.
There was 2 great spots in this match. Yes,
the Spanish fly spot off the apron was awesome.
Was that the first Spanish fly in WWE history?
I don't remember.
I can't remember seeing a Spanish fly before on a WWE show.
No, that was sick. I had to yell at my wife to come watch that move.
Yeah, it was definitely the best Spanish fly on WWE television I've ever seen before. Yeah, off the apron to the floor. That was great. And then Kendrick had a good spot of his own with the captain's hook off the top rope. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
But you kind of hit on it earlier. I don't think you were the only one who didn't care. I think most people in Toronto in the audience did not care. A couple things worked against this match. Number one, the cruiserweight, the presentation has not been good since they've been brought to the main roster. It just has not. I'm sorry, sports fans, it hasn't. And number two, once the Intercontinental title didn't change, you knew this one wasn't going to change. And I guess if the Intercontinental had changed, you would have just assumed this one would have changed. So this was kind of put in an unfortunate spot. I actually would have put this on before the Intercontinental, just because even if you switched the title or didn't switch the title here, the Intercontinental would have gotten over more.
Mm-hmm.
But this was just kind of in a bad spot. It came off the hot sequence with Cesaro and Sheamus against the Usos. Only Mauro and Corey Graves called this a little preview of 205 Live, and then the finish did not help things at all. With Baron Corbin, my boy, returning to attack Kalisto. A little continuity. That feud must continue. I don't know if that's a feud that people want to continue, but it is. And I have a question. So they took Corbin off this team, right? The SmackDown team, because he wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
Sure looked healthy tonight. Why would you not sub him back on the team then? I mean, I'm being nitpicky, but it was kind of weird. Like, I mean, really, like the whole execution of that knee injury was so clumsy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then like here, he just comes out looking like a monster. And it's like, okay, so like, why did you even announce him for the team?
Yeah.
They should just announce Shane from the start. Like, it was just, unless if they're going somewhere with that. I don't know. They teased a little tension afterwards with Corbin and Bryan again, which I liked. But yeah, I don't know.
The finish was terrible. Really, you have to admit the finish was terrible.
Awful. Oh, it was awful. Yeah, I mean, a non-finish.
Yeah.
And they'd kind of given these guys some time, too, for that finish. Was just like, bad. So like it was at this point that people complained. They're like, "Oh God, SmackDown didn't win again." But like Kendrick didn't come off looking good, and he has like it's funny they had him beat T.J. Perkins, and since then I don't think he's won.
Yeah.
You know, this
Wrong
is like,
guy to be holding the title. We've talked about that at length.
Yeah, this isn't the title match that I think a lot of people wanted. Kendrick's just not the right call as a champion. It should be somebody new. It should be Rich Swann, quite frankly. Should be the champion.
Yeah, the
TJ
division. Yeah, the division
not the right call to win
by far needs a huge restart, a huge kick in the pants, and hopefully this new show does something for him because it is dying a brutal death right now.
It's just time filler on a 3-hour show on Raw. So hopefully they can get over a little bit on 205 Live. Like I said, I wouldn't have minded if they would have switched the two belts tonight. And, you know, the cruiserweights, I think, could have had a little bit more life on SmackDown. But who knows? Not to be.
Yeah, so, yeah, that was a downer. The show was kind of on a slide at this point. And then we went into the Team SmackDown, Team Raw, the men's single match. And, all right, we've been talking about the announcing on the show and how it was a mess. The one thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned about this match before I forget is there was an awesome spot early in the match when Jericho, who's been great now for the last several months, was screaming at Dean Ambrose, "You owe me $15,000. You owe me $15,000." Obviously referring back to when his light up jacket got ripped apart by Dean Ambrose. And not a single one of the announcers mentioned anything about it. I was waiting and waiting and waiting. None of them picked up on this. They're so scripted that I think Jericho is just going off the cuff like that. Like it didn't ring a bell to anybody.
I hate when they don't do things like that, when they don't pick up on, and you're right. It's because they're scripted and Jericho was just probably saying it for the hell of it.
It was an awesome line. It was awesome. Yeah. Great moment.
And by the way, you have 4 announcers and not one of them picked up on it. Was Corey Graves doing this? He was. Oh, I'm disappointed in Corey for not picking up on that.
Yeah.
But to his credit, wasn't he still doing NXT at that time?
Yeah. Yeah. He was.
But you know, I bet you he's a pro. He does his homework. He watches all the programming. He knew that. Jericho got a big pop coming out for this match.
Yeah, huge.
It's very clear that he's going to be really over as a baby face when they do the eventual split between him and Owens. That is, I'm telling you, man, people have every right to criticize how much Jericho has declined in the ring. But as a character, man, he's still really over. And that feud is going to be great with Kevin Owens.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to work as a feud. It is going to work so much better than Owens Roman Reigns, which is the plan for Roadblock. So much
forced. Better. So forced. Nobody cares at all about that, man. It's just kind of like it was just thrown out there.
And here's something, too. I was expecting to get something to lead to that match tonight. We got nothing.
No.
I mean, not one thing. I mean, there was no interaction. So, you know, they still have a little bit of time to do something. You know, what was there, like 4 weeks, I think, between now and Roadblock? I know there's only 2 between now and TLC. But, yeah, they got to shoot something quick to get people to care. And I don't know what that's going to be. So I guess that's what to watch for in the Raw brand.
Kyle, this pay-per-view schedule is going to be the death of us.
Yes.
These I don't want to every 2 weeks we're doing a pay-per-view show. My God, so much product.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I don't want to be like most people like complain. Oh, you know, I got to watch this pro wrestling show. It's like the issue is like if they were better, I think it would be fine.
If they were all like NXT Takeover last night, I'd be down.
Yeah, but it's tough. I mean, they can't all be, but you know, just give me something to talk about, I guess, and I'll be happy. So yeah, the men's match here. My notes. Here's a big storyline to talk about. And I don't know if you picked up on this and if you did, if you'd agree. The stuff with the Shield save for when the 3 of them got back together towards the end and did the powerbomb spot on AJ, I thought did not get over at all. Like, did you notice that? Like like when it was like, there was a spot when I think it was 4-on-2 and it was just Roman and Seth were the only guys left for Raw, and they looked at each other to do the whole, it's just us, like old time's sake. Nobody gave a damn about that. Nobody gave a damn when it was versus Dean early on. Wow. That was something I think is certainly worth noting.
No, the little subtle teases didn't get anyone into it. The biggest tease that the crowd reacted to was early when you were going to have Seth and AJ, and then AJ tagged out. The crowd was ready to see them wrestle. That was right at the beginning of the match. Of course, later in the match they went at it, but yeah, the little teases didn't work so well with the Shield, although they did pop for the little reunion at the end.
Yeah, they did. And I'll say it again. Man, did they break them up too soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they were so much better as a group than they've been individually. So much better.
All except yeah, definitely Ambrose and Reigns. I'm not sure on Rollins. Rollins has been not lately, but like last year, he's been pretty good as
pushed as the champion, but still, I don't know, man. Like I just think like it was way too soon in retrospect that they screwed that up. Like because people didn't want them to break up.
No, yeah, you're right.
It's not like like they did it to try to do like this, get this huge heat for Rollins, but like the heat was more like on the promotion for breaking them up than on Rollins. I thought.
Yeah.
So, who was the early star of this match? And I don't give a damn what you say.
Who?
Braun Strowman.
Oh, man.
I thought he was booked perfectly. I mean, not a great worker.
I think he was booked well. I'll agree.
But, he got the first elimination. He pinned Ambrose because they did tease Styles and Ambrose not getting along because they're going to be working at TLC against each other, obviously. So Styles kind of turned on Ambrose and Braun pinned him. And, one subtle tease they did do that got over was Braun and Bray. I thought that drew a bigger reaction than Shane and Dean, or Seth and Dean. Maybe that was just my ears. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe Bray Wyatt's not as dead in the water as we thought he was.
Yeah, well, or maybe it's just because that's something we haven't seen before. Like we've seen Seth and Dean like wrestle a lot.
Yeah,
through the years.
Yeah,
so it's not like that was special. It's like, ooh, wow, Seth and Dean are gonna go at it. It's like, dude, we've seen this a million times.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they got rid of Braun, I thought was pretty creative with Ellsworth holding on to the leg outside the ring and he got counted out.
Yeah.
And, we talked about how they didn't protect Nia Jax. They protected Braun properly here and he chucked Ellsworth off the stage. Good use of Ellsworth. Good use of Braun.
Good use of Ellsworth. Just let him go flying through the air.
Yeah. Who got way too much offense in this match?
Who do I think you would say here? Shane, probably.
Yep.
Yeah. Shane was just out of place.
His punches.
Oh God, so
second
bad.
Worst worked punches in the history of pro wrestling. Who is the only person who has worse worked punches than Shane McMahon? I'll give you a clue. He's another very part-time performer. I'll give you a second clue. His last name is also McMahon.
Well, yeah, Vince, but
and it's not Linda. That's my third with that. And it's not Stephanie.
Cena's punches are pretty awful. Cena's in the running.
Yeah, and like at one point, one of the announcers was like, "Oh, Shane's really been doing a lot of working on his striking." I'm like, "Good Lord, who is this brown noser?"
Yeah,
it
pretty brutal.
Yeah, I think it was Otunga. Of course it was. But Shane got a lot of offense here. As much as Jericho, as much as I like his character, we talked about his ring work declining. The Jericho Shane segment kind of slowed this thing down a little bit. Now, compared to the women's and tag team, they were letting all the individual segments breathe in this match, and it was good. This match, I think, went 52 minutes, which is one of the longest WWE matches in history. Kevin Owens, what a weird night this was for him. The Universal Champion just DQ'd.
Yeah,
randomly in the match.
Huge reaction from the crowd too.
Yeah, and when he got DQ'd, the crowd didn't like that because he had not done much in the match up until that point.
Yeah,
I was stunned how early he went out. Like I thought, like him and Jericho, they do a lot more with them, but it was very clear that they wanted to babyface the Raw side with Seth and Roman, so they cleared the deck and had KO and Jericho eliminated. And the crowd did not like either of those guys going out so soon.
Yeah,
because they kind of went out both middle of the match. I think back to back they were eliminations. Owens was disqualified, and then Orton RKO'd Jericho, which left it 4-on-2, Roman and Seth against AJ, Shane, Orton, and Bray. What do I have in my notes here? I hand wrote my notes, by the way, and my handwriting is atrocious. I need to. I can.
We
see
are on
why
a webcam here. You should show us the notes for all of you watching the show. Let's see what this looks like. Go ahead, Kyle.
Here's let's see here. There we
go. That is pretty sloppy.
Yeah, that's pretty sloppy.
I need you to actually, Kyle, while we're out of here, can you position your cam down a little bit? We need to see your smiling face a little better, and your t-shirt.
Oh, well, we're not going to see it. This is not a political broadcast. We're not going to see my t-shirt.
There you go. That's better.
Okay, sorry, I was moving all around. Oh, this is what I wrote down. Jake the Snake next to Roman and Seth, because remember we had talked about in those that one of those first Survivor Series how Jake the Snake got over huge, like when he was the only babyface left on his side, and like the crowd totally bought him, even though it's like obvious he wasn't going to go over.
Yeah,
I thought Seth and Roman were the complete opposite of that in this match. I thought like they looked at each other like, yeah, let's do this. And the crowd was like, we hope you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
Did you notice the crowd? Like it's kind of funny because we joked about what is this show all about?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what's the purpose of this Survivor Series, these elimination matches? There was definitely, Twitter's not, I don't think, the most accurate representation of the wrestling fan base because it's just so skewed.
Yeah.
But there was like people in the audience legitimately chanting for SmackDown.
Yeah.
Which was kind of funny. Like I thought that Raw almost kind of came off as the heel brand. And when it was Seth and Roman, they, creative clearly wanted them to be the face side. And, it was kind of a rejection a little bit there.
Yeah. So the spot of this match, I wanted to make sure we mention. For you, what do you think I'm going to say? Best spot in the match. I'll give you a clue. Out of the corner, a guy we haven't talked about.
Elbow drop?
No. Oh God, no. We could talk about that though.
Okay.
So Shane did his patented elbow from the corner to the outside through the table. Who was that on again?
It was on Braun.
That's right. Oh, that's
yes, I have here. Shane got his old Glory Hog spot on Braun.
Yeah.
Oh, the spot of the match was Shane getting concussed by Roman Reigns.
Yeah, that was. Oh my God, that was insane.
That's terrible because I hope the man's all right. Because I just written to a bunch of buddies on Facebook. I'm like, will somebody get rid of Shane McMahon? It's kind of pissing me off.
And then that happened.
Like, a minute later,
you thought he was killed.
Yeah, they got rid of him. All right, they had to pick him up on a spatula. What was the best spot in this match? I'm trying to.
The RKO to Rollins out of the frog splash. That was awesome.
Yes, and that was not the first time we'd seen a great RKO executed on Seth Rollins.
Oh.
Remember WrestleMania last year?
Which according to those guys, that was the first time they ever tried it. They didn't even practice it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought that was awesome. That was a move of the night to me. But yeah, the Shane coming off the corner and getting speared midair. Were you surprised that he kicked out, or he kind of kicked out? He had like the shoulder up.
I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I think he was out and he instinctively kicked out and he screwed up.
Yeah.
Because that was clearly, I mean, if you didn't see it, Shane went for the Van Terminator, which he's done before, but he was going to do it on Reigns, but Reigns got up and speared the hell out of him midair. I mean, hard. And that was clearly the finish to get rid of Shane.
Yeah.
And Shane kicked out at 2 and the crowd was confused. Shane was clearly concussed or confused and just instinctively kicked out. And the ref just rolled. He's like, "Hey, you're out anyway."
Yeah, they just rang the bell and like he's been eliminated.
Yeah, and
like knockout or what? But
yeah, I hate saying in the old days because I think I've said it 3 times now on the show, and it makes me sound old and it makes me sound also unsympathetic. Because if he really was concussed, then he's immediately got to get out of the match. That's just the reality in 2016. You can't, protect kayfabe and have him like take another move.
Yeah.
If he's concussed, that's really wrong. But God, I just wish they could have covered for that a little bit better.
Yeah.
I just wish Shane wouldn't have kicked out, I guess. But yeah, and then the next elimination was No, it wasn't. Then we should talk about the next elimination after Shane was AJ, actually, when Ambrose came back out. They did the 3-way Shield reunion, power bombed him through the table, and who pinned him? I can't remember. Did Seth pin him? I think.
Pinned Ambrose?
No, AJ.
Oh, AJ.
I think he did.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Either Seth or Roman pinned AJ.
Yeah.
Corey Graves, by the way, gets 2 points for referencing the old AJ Roman matches pre-built brand split. God bless Corey Graves. Dean, here's another thing. When he came out, so we're backtracking a little bit. This is before that RKO on the frog splash, but Dean came out to get his heat back against AJ for turning on him and eliminating him. He was not the baby face to that crowd, even though he was designed to be. Did you notice that the crowd was chanting "stupid idiot" at him?
Yeah.
Which was not the desired reaction, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
AJ, man, I'm telling you what, and eventually they're going to have him work Taker, I bet, at maybe the Rumble. Didn't we had talked about that last week, right?
Yep.
That'll get him in the heel role finally, but man, the crowd just cheers him no matter what.
Yeah. People love him. He's ready to.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting at TLC because no one's going to buy Ambrose as having a shot in that match.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see how the crowd reacts, especially if they do what some people are calling for and having James Ellsworth turn on Ambrose there.
Yeah.
Is that going to draw, is James Ellsworth's heel turn going to draw a huge face reaction?
That's what's going to get the people on Dean's side. James Ellsworth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, after that, the crowd was cheering SmackDown. Yeah. Once it comes on to Roman Reigns against the Orton and Wyatt, the crowd started chanting SmackDown Live. Roman Reigns was this guy just cannot
stopping around backstage at this point. He was.
Yeah, Roman. I'm telling you, he was. We should point it out. It wasn't as bad as it's been some nights, but he was. This crowd treated him like the top heel in the promotion, and then the Wyatts win, which was a little bit of a surprise. But like we said, we kind of were figuring Raw was going to win here, or pardon me, SmackDown was going to win here. So
yeah.
And I was like, God, are they going to put the Wyatts over? But yeah, I was shocked. And Luke Harper made an appearance, and they stood tall. Where do you go with the Wyatts from here? Because obviously them winning needs to mean something.
Well, I think you got to say it was a massive surprise that they won. First of all, if you look how they've been booked for the last couple of months. I guess something with Orton still, just judging by the finish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know, the options are so limited.
I actually like how they're going to keep going with the Orton thing. Because if it was just a real short-term thing, what a pointless thing. Because, no one bought it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they've got to go all the way with this and get people to buy it and then have them turn.
Yeah.
So I kind of respect that they're sticking to it, not just making this a completely pointless 4-week thing that no one buys, and then when he reveals it's a ruse, everyone's like, oh wow, gee, I didn't see that coming. But this way maybe they can get some doubt. People are like, oh wow, maybe I think they're going to be fodder for Undertaker Kane or something like that, which I don't like.
Let's hope not.
You know what I'm saying? Because Kane still has that issue with them.
Yeah.
Undertaker, I can maybe see. I don't know. I feel Wyatt's jobbed a lot to the Undertaker. That was last year at Survivor Series. Wasn't there some tag match that Wyatt jobbed to him?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, was that last year or was that 2 years? I can't remember. It was either last year or 2 years ago. Regardless.
Yeah, it was one of the many wasted opportunities with Bray Wyatt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we had Goldberg and Lesnar. Yeah,
so that was the show. I wouldn't call it a bad show. I wouldn't call it a good show. I'd give it the thumbs in the middle. It was the show. Compared with TakeOver though, man, they were never going to live up to what TakeOver did the night before. But that crowd was just crazy, and the crowd tonight pretty reserved. So yeah, if you haven't seen TakeOver, go back and watch it. Awesome show, top to bottom, 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, TakeOver just has that advantage of, it being the culmination of several months worth of storylines where the creative and NXT has not been as good, I think, certainly in the last several months as it had been before. But, you know, I just think that wrestling always works that way. Like when you have got like, 5 matches where you've been building to them for months on end, they're fresh matchups. That's huge too.
Mm-hmm.
Because, on Raw, like are the Raw and SmackDown only pay-per-views, a lot of times you've already seen the matches on TV.
Yeah.
At least the undercard matches. So you don't really care. You're like, oh, I've already seen this.
Yeah.
With TakeOver, they protect it and save those matches.
Yeah. So let's mention here. I know you said you haven't seen the show yet, but let's close. Let's talk about the finish with Joe going over Nakamura.
Okay.
So massive surprise, I think, to everyone watching. We did a poll on our Top Rope Press Twitter account, and I think 93% of people before the match said Nakamura would win, which is like, we never do a poll that gets 93% on anything. So yeah, when Joe won the match, all the rumors started online. Does this mean Shinsuke is headed to the main roster now? I wouldn't think so, because I think they still need him to sell tickets. I think you're probably looking at another Nakamura Joe match, even though they've had matches. But I was shocked, really shocked that Nakamura lost the belt. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see where they go with that. But that was the most shocking moment of the weekend.
Yeah, I don't know if it was more shocking than that main event tonight.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Okay,
but I guess I just didn't really care much about that match.
Okay, well, I think that Joe, for whatever reason, is just not going to the main roster.
I thought going in, this was his swan song in NXT. It seemed like it.
Yeah, for Nakamura, he's got to, I think. I don't know if it's immediately, but I don't think you run a third straight takeover with Nakamura Joe, do you?
No, they could. I mean, they could do a television match. I could see him switching the title back, even at a house show. They've done that before, but maybe on a big TV match, since the TV's been kind of stale. In January, and then Joe debuts in the Royal Rumble. I still feel like Joe is going to debut on the main roster before Nakamura, just because NXT needs Nakamura more than they need Samoa Joe.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I hate to be this guy. I don't know. You'd think Nakamura is the better choice to carry the brand than Joe, but I'll tell you what, some of these NXT crowds have been pretty sparse recently. I don't know what that reason is. Like, they didn't sell out New York earlier in the week.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of that?
I was shocked.
Okay,
they were at the theater at Madison Square Garden, not quite all the way full. I heard that they had to move people down from the cheap seats to fill in the lower sections.
I mean, well, that headline with a 6-man, right? It was with DIY and Revival.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and they didn't really announce a full card for it ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see if maybe they do that next time. But yeah, I don't know. NXT seems to, although, and I can't comment on the show because I haven't watched it, so I don't want to but by all accounts, it was very good from what you've said and what I'd read. It was very good. But, it hadn't, in the weeks leading up to this show Saturday night, it wasn't setting the world on fire, it seemed.
No, that's what made the show. I don't know what the
problem was.
Yeah. It just shows you when NXT is firing on all cylinders, though. It's still pretty special, even with a kind of a decimated roster right now. They still got the hardcore fans behind that product, and maybe Nakamura's not selling as many tickets as, say, Balor when he was on the top of the card, or maybe it's because the roster was so much more stacked back then than it is now.
And Bailey, don't forget about the loss of Bailey.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So it's I don't know, don't get me wrong, I want to see Nakamura on the main roster before Joe personally. I just feel like they think they need Nakamura down there more than Joe. If one of them's is going to go to the main roster, I think they feel they're in a better spot with Shinsuke down there leading the charge. I don't think Nakamura should have been in NXT longer than a month or two, though, personally. No, guys.
Realistically, he didn't need to be in there at all.
No.
I mean, maybe just to learn the WWE quote unquote style, I guess it's helpful. And I think he's spoken highly of the experience. So, I mean, certainly he's not going to speak poorly of it, but at least publicly. But And he has no reason to speak poorly of it. But I don't know. I think he's gonna beat Joe to the main roster.
And Bobby Roode, who is awesome and glorious, of course. He looks like he's on his way to a main event feud here too. So maybe he'll be the guy in when someone else goes up.
He's another guy who probably could just go to the main roster sooner than later.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure, now that you mentioned it, that Nakamura versus Bobby Roode would be your big feud, maybe for the WrestleMania weekend takeover.
Yeah, we talked about that last week on the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see where we go. But yeah, I think NXT is going to have some steam behind them again for the first time in a couple months now after this weekend, because it was quite the show. I do want to say we do have to do this drawing we've been pumping on our social media. So thanks to the people at 2K Sports UK, actually. We were hooked up with some copies of the new WWE 2K17 video game for the Xbox One this time. Maybe we'll get some PS4 ones in the future. So basically the rules were you needed to go onto iTunes, look up Top Rope Nation, subscribe, leave us a rating, and send us a screenshot. And so I have all the people who sent us proof that they had entered in this trusty Top Rope Nation podcast coffee mug that you see here. Kyle,
plug.
There you go.
Yeah.
You get these on our shop at spreadshirt.com. If you go to topropepress.com, there's a link for merchandise. You'll find this nice coffee mug. I'm sure that they'll probably be having a Black Friday sale this week. So check that out. But inside, we've got different names, as you can see. So I'm going to swirl these around here and pick out a winner. And whoever I choose here is getting a $60 video game for free. All right.
Generous people we are.
The winner is at Derek Oversell. So Derek will be contacting you, getting your information. We'll be sending you a free copy of WWE 2K17. So
wow.
Look out for that.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. So with that said, Kyle, anything else you got in closing?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well,
we'll wait and see. I suppose with the show and what they do with Goldberg, I think the legacy of Survivor Series 2016 is tied to what they do with Goldberg from here.
Yeah. Shocking finish, that's for sure. All right. So, hey, it's been fun. Thanks for all of you that tuned in and those of you that are watching on demand on YouTube. We'll do it again. As always, you can check the show out. Our podcasts weekly, usually in the middle of the week. They're available at topropepress.com, iTunes, Podbean. Just look up Top Rope Nation. And also wanted to mention we do have a store on Pro Wrestling Tees, and Pro Wrestling Tees has a 20% off sale starting this week. Actually, it might be tomorrow. It's Monday or Tuesday. I have a Black Friday sale. So we have a pretty good looking t-shirt on Pro Wrestling Tees for the podcast. It's got that logo you see there on the coffee mug on a gray shirt. So if you've been looking to get one of those shirts and support our show, this is the perfect time, 20% off. So with that being said, I am Ryan Drosty, topropepress.com. He's Kyle Ross, and we will catch you guys next time. Thanks.